Hello and welcome to the Minnesota RØKKR pre-show going on live here on the RØKKR YouTube channel. I'm here today. I'm Ashley, aka Midnight. I'm here with Doug, aka Esports Doug. Doug, how are you today?
I'm doing super well. I'm super freaking excited that we're back to Call of Duty. It's going to be a stacked weekend. There are a ton of implications to the way teams perform. I'm like jazzed up already. So it's going to be a good show.
Yeah, I'm super stoked. We wanted to make sure we came on here and just kind of got everybody a little bit informed for the weekend, like who's playing who, what's the matchups looking like. This is the weekend of the New York Subliners home series. Obviously, it is all online, unfortunately, but we're making do. I'm just glad we're still here playing COD competitively and being able to talk about it, chilling. So, get cozy, grab some popcorn, whatever, get yourself ready because this live stream will actually run up until the time that the COD League YouTube channel goes live, where you can watch all of the action this weekend that we are going to talk about. So, I, where do we even start? It's been a roller coaster of a year 2020 has been with this is the league's first year, the Call of Duty League's first official year. It's been super exciting. Obviously with 2020, we went from LAN events regularly, LAN home series to now online home series. That's been really interesting to watch play out. Minnesota RØKKR, I think on our last pre-show, Doug, we talked a lot about the kind of the ups and downs of the season so far, and now we're really going into this last third of the season, and it's time to compete. It's time to get these points, and it's time to do this thing. For you, Doug, what's your first impression of this New York Subliners home series? When you look at the groups, and we'll get into that, like who's playing who and everything, but when you look at this weekend, what are the implications for the end of the season, in your opinion?
Yeah, I've got to say, and this is not just because this is a Minnesota RØKKR show, I can't help but look at the bracket, look at the rest of the season, and think Minnesota here has everything to gain and at the same time has everything to lose. Like, I don't know that there's a team with more long-term implications contingent upon this weekend than Minnesota.
Yeah, I have to agree. This is a huge weekend for us. We are coming off a little bit of a skid. Like I said, we started off really well in the first half of the season. We were in top four, I think, going into our own home series. And now I'll put the standings up on the screen. We've got Atlanta FaZe in first. Florida Mutineers rocketed past in fifth place to second, which is insane. And then you have Chicago Huntsmen and Dallas tied for third and fourth. And then we're sitting at 120 CDL points. Now, if we look at who's actually playing in this tournament this weekend, it's all of the groups. I feel like for the rest of the events this year are stacked. I think I think we may be in the more, we as a Minnesota RØKKR might be in a little bit more difficult group than the others. It's pretty insane. So I'll just go through them really quick. So Group A has Paris Legion, Toronto Ultra, Atlanta FaZe, and the LA Gorillas. I mean, that first impression there, just looking at it, I really feel like FaZe is just gonna storm through that one, storm out at least. And then for Group B, we've got the London Royal Ravens, who, I mean, they, like us, they really have something to prove at this point of the year. Chicago Huntsmen, who've, they've had their ups and downs as well this season, but overall they've played super well. They're a very good team. And then you have the New York Subliners, so the home team, technically. And they've showed vast improvement throughout the season. And then, obviously, Minnesota RØKKR. So, Doug, when you look at these groups, and specifically when you look at the matchups that are going to be happening here today on Friday, who do you think makes it out of each group? And I'd love to talk about the initial matchups with you after.
Okay, so let's see Group A. Who makes it out of Group A? Atlanta, obviously.
For sure.
And then, like, low key, I like Toronto here.
Yeah?
I think Toronto and Paris could be a really interesting match, but I would argue that Toronto has looked to be more on the upswing as of late.
Yes.
And is showing like positive trajectory throughout the last couple of events. So I really like Toronto here, at least relative to the beginning of their season, right? Like, not comparing them with other teams, just comparing them throughout their entire season. So I do like Toronto there. I do. Group B, like you said,
Whew.
is much more dicey.
How do you call it?
I don't. Yeah, that one's really tricky. I want to give the tip of the hat to Chicago, because like you said, they've had ups and downs, but they've had a lot more ups than they've had downs.
For sure.
And I think over an extended period of time, that's where the you kind of learn what a team is made out of. And Chicago has shown time and time again that they're not going to consistently be at the very top, but if you're at the top 80% of the time, that's pretty damn good too. So I want to give Chicago the nod there. And then the last, in my opinion, the last comes down to the very first match of Minnesota's weekend, and it's New York and Minnesota. I think without getting too granular, New York has been on a pretty substantial upswing, especially since the addition of Mac.
For sure.
And Minnesota has hit a lot of bumps in the road recently, right? Like, let's not sugarcoat it. It's been a hard couple of weeks, a hard couple of events for Minnesota. So that one's more of a coin toss. And the only reason I say it's a coin toss, excuse me, is because Minnesota has shown what they're capable of. Like, man, when they're good, they fry with the best of them. So I might have said this at the last event, but I would argue that the stakes are higher here. If Minnesota comes out hot, and if they come out playing like we know that they can do, this can be a really good weekend for them. But if it's a lot of this same old for the last couple of weeks, this could be a very short, very, very short weekend for Minnesota.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that Minnesota RØKKR needs to come out with the fire. If we're looking at that first, I mean, it's the marquee match today. It's going to be us versus the New York Subliners. And one thing of note, I mean, obviously we're doing, I think we're doing pretty well on LAN as that faded into online earlier this year. We then placed into grand finals of an online event, so I know that we're capable of doing well online. But I do feel that within the last few events, it's online has created a little bit more of like anybody can win. And I really do genuinely believe this. This league has 12 teams, and I really do believe that almost every team in the league could beat any of the others. Like it's kind of corny to say, but any given Sunday.
Well, no, like I look at Florida, right?
Yes.
Like people, the beginning of the season for them, they got 10 points. Then they had a better performance, 30 points, and then 10 points again. So they were like, who are these guys? They went through a couple of roster changes, and then bam, right? They win an event, and then they don't get any points at the next event they play at. So like Florida, I think that just goes to show there are a lot of really good teams. There are a lot of really good rosters here. And to your point, any given Sunday, right? Any team can hang. I won't say any team. Let me take that back. Almost any team can hang with almost any team. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing significant to point out that happened at the Minnesota home series, I believe this is the first injury substitution in Call of Duty League, definitely for this year. I do remember last year, I think there was Priesta was on the main stage and he got sick. He was not feeling well, so they had to have somebody sub in, but it wasn't like an actual injury. So for Minnesota RØKKR, Alex, I mean, he is such a fast player, which I think is something that teams really need to utilize online. Like when you're able to have those fast sub players, especially online, you're able to just push the pace a little bit more against these other teams. And so having him and Asim, like really having that duo in there, it was tough to have him, lose a little bit of his luster during the home series. This will be actually yesterday. This was showcased in an episode of Saga, which is our docu-series here that we do about the team. But he explains it a little bit, but I'll just give you a little bit of it. If you haven't heard about it, here's what happened. So Alex's thumb was very sore going into the Minnesota home series that whole week. He was still practicing, but he was just not really getting his best practice. The team was noticing, and he just wanted to play through it. I mean, he's a tough kid. He wants to win. He's competitive. Like, there's no way that Alex is just going to be like, sorry, guys. So he goes into that Dallas Empire match that we played on Friday of the Minnesota home series, and he didn't play well. He had his worst performance yet, and it was very clear that the thumb was, the issue there for him. And so he, took it upon himself to say to the team, hey, guys, I don't have a British accent, so I can't say it how he sounded, but he said, hey, guys, you're going to have to play with Exceed, who's our substitute player on Minnesota RØKKR. So, and that's what ended up happening. So, and then I believe we played Seattle Surge. How do you think Exceed did? I mean, having to step up on that short of notice is really, really tough.
Yeah, it's super tough, and I think you were alluding to this earlier, but I want to touch on it again a bit more. The duo of Alex and Asim cannot be understated when it comes to the value that it brings to the squad. Both of them, time and time again throughout the season, have shown the willingness and the efficiency, if you will, in being able to do a lot of the dirty work, right? It doesn't look sexy on a stat line, but they're the guys who are putting in the dirty work who are allowing the team at a larger scale to succeed. So not only is his position as important as it is, but Exceed came in last second,
Mm-hmm.
right? What wasn't necessarily prepping in the same way, and I was thoroughly impressed with how he performed. Again, the team didn't win, we know, but I have, man, give the shirt off my back to him for the way that he performed in what's a hard situation, right? It again, short notice, an insanely important role
Yep.
on the squad. For him to perform as well as he did, honestly, is it's admirable.
Yeah, I think Exceed did a great job. I mean, it was tough. He even in Saga yesterday he referenced. I highly recommend you guys check out the episode. I think it's really interesting to see this injury substitution situation play out, but how he came in with the drive and he did his best, and I think we still took him to map 5 and almost beat Seattle, which I know they've had their issues as well this year, but we were right there, and it's really really tough to do. It's not stated enough how hard it is to come in that moment, because it's with a team that you're not regularly practicing with. Exceeds typically practicing with his challengers team and doing that. So it's tough to come in, but I think he did play really well, and obviously it put us in an even well. We said this before the last home series in the pre-show, but before that weekend, that was like a really noteworthy weekend for us. Like, this was where we're going to decide like which way the scale is going to tip, and we had an unfortunate event happen. Now going into this weekend, if we pull up the pro standings here and we look at the points, the top four are really, or I guess third and fourth are tied, but the top four are really starting to pull away. And this weekend, the event Toronto that Minnesota RØKKR will also play at will be very indicative of how, playoffs and champs, how that picture looks. This weekend is so important for Minnesota RØKKR and frankly all of the teams competing here. There's a lot of implications on the line, as you say.
This is particularly important because after this weekend, Minnesota has one event left,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, the time to make moves is now, and there is no more room for error. Yeah, the last one was important. Uh, this one more so, and I think the reason it kind of worked out the way it did was because of how some of the placements went down in Minnesota.
Yep.
They probably worked out to Minnesota's benefit, given how poorly they performed, that things turned out the way that they did, and that's going to give them another lease on life. But this is genuinely the last weekend, right? Like, you can't have a bad weekend here. You can't.
Yep, you've got to come out hitting it. And I know, I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's different for me because I'm like internally, like I talk with the coaches often. I try to hit up the well, I don't hit up the players often, but if I do talk to them, I'm like, yo, let's go, like you got this. And they felt confident all season. I mean, you have to, with how much effort they put in every day and how much they're practicing. You're seeing and feeling that improvement, but it's all depends on what happens when it's actually go time, when the points are actually on
Mm-hmm.
the line, because this all leads to a bigger picture. So we have this event that
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota's playing in, then there's the Toronto event, and
Mm-hmm.
after that I believe playoffs and champs will happen, and I think they're going to
Mm-hmm.
release hopefully some info on like what that's all going to look like. But it
Mm-hmm.
should not be understated how dang important getting 10 points
Mm-hmm.
for a win is. So if we look
Mm-hmm.
at here the bracket, I don't want to do like full predictions, but I really want to look at these like first day of matches, because guys, the main stream is actually about to start on the COD League YouTube channel. There's a link down in our description below. Otherwise, just type in COD League and I'm sure it'll pop up, because they've probably got it all ready to go. But yeah, so it's starting soon. Get cozy, get your snacks. Doug and I will be in the Discord this weekend, the Minnesota
Mm-hmm.
RØKKR Discord. We'll be hanging out, talking about the matches while they're happening. It's going to be a great time. But when we when we're thinking about this, Doug, we're looking at these initial matchups for today. We've got who's going to play first? Toronto Ultra versus Paris Legion,
Mm-hmm.
Chicago versus London, LA Gorillas versus Atlanta FaZe, and then obviously we've already talked about the us and Minnesota RØKKR and the Subliners. But honestly, who do you? I really feel like Paris is going to play better than they have, but I still think Toronto takes that first match of the stream. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Again, I think Toronto just has looked better, right? Like they've been on an upswing. They've been playing really well. Again, relative to how they have played throughout the rest of the season. So I've got to give Toronto the tip of the hat here. And then if you were to draw this out as like a line graph, if you will, roll with me for a second. I know.
I
Roll
got
with
you.
me. Toronto has done this.
Yes.
Paris has done this.
Yep.
So like with that in mind and a lot of the way that both teams have performed recently, I can't help but lean towards Toronto.
Yeah, I think they've actually improved quite a lot, and it's actually they're a very interesting team. I mean, I've always kind of
Mm-hmm.
just kicked jokes their way because they're a little bit of our rival, but I really do think they're a great team. They've had a 10-man roster that they've been tinkering with and adjusting as the season goes. No other team is doing that in the league right now. It's been interesting to
Mm-hmm.
watch, but it's kind of cool to see them finally find some footing. Honestly, I do. So Chicago Huntsmen versus London Royal Ravens. I feel like Chicago is going to win that match, but I'm a little concerned. It kind of depends on what Chicago you're going to get. It seems to be they
Yep.
kind of do
Yep.
like this up and down thing. Like they'll win an event, and then I don't know if they just get
Yep.
complacent or they get the meta changes all year. So who knows what it is? But they win, they don't do as well. They win, don't do as well. So they're coming. They're
Mm-hmm.
bound to rebound back up this weekend. I'm wondering if they'll be able to do it though, because I know that London Royal Ravens team they're below us, Minnesota RØKKR in the standings, but they're very close. Like they're a few wins from trying to eclipse us. They're trying to get into that top four, top five slot. Who do you think takes that one?
Chicago. And again, I think when you look at that roster on paper and you look at performance over time,
Mm-hmm.
Chicago is just better, and they're consistently better, in my opinion. I do think you made a really good point there in regards to standings and the implications that that series has on Minnesota.
Right.
Those two spots, Minnesota at 5 and London at 6, are one weekend away from swapping,
Right.
right? Like London has a good event, Minnesota has a not so good event. It's a totally different conversation. So I do think while for Minnesota, you've got focus on what you can control. There is a whole lot happening around them that will have a drastic impact on their placings throughout the season.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think going next, Los Angeles Gorillas versus Atlanta FaZe. Atlanta FaZe has been kind of interesting too. I mean, they're still at the top. They're in first place by 30. Like that's pretty dang good. But it's been interesting to see them go down 0-2 so many times in series, but still just have the resolve to bounce back and do it. I'm wondering if they're going to tighten up and hopefully not end up in so many map fives that as they have been. And I mean, the Gorillas have improved pretty drastically, I'd say, from the beginning of the season, but I still think Atlanta FaZe takes it today.
I agree. I'm actually most excited to see this squad uh, this weekend, excuse me, and for a number of reasons. One, what you mentioned, it seems like as of late, teams have been pushing them a little bit more than they were used to getting pushed around, at least as much as we were used to getting them pushed around at the beginning of the season. Then there's also been all this drama on Twitter with gentleman agreements and the
Yeah.
OG in particular, and like were they blacklisted? Were they not blacklisted for scrims? Kind of what does that look like? So I think in life, I've been advised not to poke the bear unless I can fight the bear. I can't help but get a feeling that Atlanta's been poked a little bit here, right? Like the recent performance and then all this stuff. I would not be shocked if this weekend we saw an Atlanta performance uh, that just like trumps all of the other performances we've seen from them this season. I wouldn't be shocked if this was the best Atlanta we've seen yet.
You just scared me saying that because it actually sounds pretty legit. Like they're looking to kind of prove themselves, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and and really make sure that they stamp their foot down, I would imagine. So I'm
Hmm.
excited to see how that goes, but obviously very biased, okay? The Minnesota RØKKR stuff everywhere. And I work for the team. But we're going to be playing, Minnesota RØKKR's going to be playing the Subliners tonight. I know we've talked
Hmm.
about it a little
Hmm.
bit. I think with Alex being back in the Minnesota RØKKR lineup, and from all I've heard, the scrims online have been going pretty well. I know it's been pretty messy with the gentlemen's agreements and which is kind of like an unspoken set of rules, which has been interesting to see them try to decide what guns are okay to use in gameplay and which weapons aren't. So it's been really interesting to follow, but I still think at the end of the day, it's going to go back to that core Call of Duty teamwork, skill, push the pace, online factor that you need to do and to do well. So I'm pretty nervous for the match. Honestly, it's tough to say how we're gonna come out because we weren't able to play with Alex in our last match. Mac Melts has still been insane for New York. So what do you
Yep.
think? I have my predictions for this match coming down to, I believe I had us taking it 3-2. And I'm never gonna
Yeah.
not predict Minnesota. I just don't have it in me to not predict Minnesota. But Doug, let me know your honest thoughts. What do you think about Minnesota playing New York?
Yeah. Honest thoughts. Mac might be the hottest pickup of the season, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that.
him or
I feel.
Awakening, but Mac has had a really direct
Yep.
impact from like
Hmm.
Florida was already pretty good. New York was like literally at the bottom.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he's been so impactful.
So Mac has been super interesting, and it's a feel good story, right? Like who doesn't love that? Um, that said, I think this game or this series, excuse me, will go the distance. I think it'll go 5 games. A lot of it depends, in my opinion, on Alex and how he's able to perform. Is he going to return to the Alex of old, that's very comfortable doing all the dirty work and is still even in some games having a very good statistical performance, or not? I think if Alex comes back and he's back to normal, he's back to the Alex that we've grown to know and love. Um, then I think this goes 5 games in favor of Minnesota. If Alex stumbles a little bit and there's still a little bit of that cohesion that's lacking, I can easily see this going in favor of New York.
I think you're right on the nose. That makes perfect sense to me. It's all about how Alex reintegrates into the team. I'm excited to see how it goes. I mean, like I said, from all accounts that I've heard of how practice is going, Alex is feeling really good. He's feeling ready. There's no pain. He's been cleared by the doctor that he saw. I don't know if I mentioned this, but he did go see an orthopedic specialist. He's been doing physical. Is it training? What is it?
Therapy.
Therapy, yeah. Couldn't think of the word. But physical therapy, possibly physically training, who knows? But he's really been making sure that he is in his best tip top shape. The
Hmm.
coaches were very close in that process. The coaches were
Hmm.
talking with that specialist, that the doctor, and making sure that Alex was truly ready to go. Because the kid, I mean, I'll say this: he's a competitor. He wants to play so bad, and I'm sure that he would be willing to bite the bullet and play through pain. But we definitely wanted to make sure that he was not doing that, that he was taking every precaution, because it was very, very, very important for us, for him to be good at this end of the year. Because as we've said, I mean, we've really driven it home, but it's true. This weekend is so important. Toronto is so important. Playoffs, so important. Getting to champs. It's that time of year. I'm getting fired up already. I'm getting ready to watch some Call of Duty, Doug. Are you excited for the games this weekend?
Oh, I'm freaking fired up. Again, some really good storylines here. Like there are a lot of things that I can see going either way. There's opportunity for redemption for some squads. There's opportunity to set yourself apart for others. So it's going to be a good weekend. I'm freaking pumped.
I'm really excited. I hope you guys are too. We're going to wrap this up. Go make sure to hang out in the stream this weekend. It's going to be on COD League's YouTube channel, so we'll link it down below to go watch the live stream. But just go to COD League's YouTube channel, you'll be able to find the action. And join me and many other RØKKR fans. Doug will be there. We're going to be in the Minnesota RØKKR Discord. That link will be in the description as well. We'll be chatting, we'll be video, talking about it, getting all fired up about the games, doing a little bit of analysis, and I'm really stoked for it. So hope to see you guys in the Discord and in the YouTube chat, giving some Let's Go RØKKRs, and I'm stoked. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ashley.